Hello, my little mathematicians. Today we're going to be going over how to represent algebraics in graphs and tables and equations, okay? And the difference between independent and dependent quantities. So first off, an equation, table, and graph or verbal descriptions can describe the relationships between x and y. So one of the most common ones is y equals a times x, where a is known as the rate. Okay. It's known as the rate of change sometimes, or other times sometimes known as slope. Okay, so in the relationship between x and y, a is the rate of change between them, meaning that x is always multiplied by a constant rate and then affects your answer for y. So when determining your independent versus dependent relationships, your answer of y depends upon what you did to x. Okay. Other things to take note of is that your x is always your independent axis, the horizontal one, and your y is always the vertical axis. So here, if you plugged in 0 for x, okay, y would be 0 as well. If you plugged in 1 for x, then y would be 25. If you plugged in 2 for x, then y would be 50. So in order to have this happen, what do you think the a was? So in order to get these answers that I've just been reading, when I did this to x, I get this for y. What was your rate of change each time? Do you see any constant? Which brings me another reminder. Sometimes we refer to a as the constant. Okay, so it's the constant rate of change that you're always multiplying x by to get y. Okay, well, you notice that if you did 25 times x, you get 50. If you did 1 times 25, you get 25. Or 0 times 25, you still get 0. So each time you have the x, you multiplied it by 25. And then you got your corresponding y. That is your equation that represents this relationship in the table. So to complete it, we'd follow at a constant rate of change. I'd continue multiplying the x by 25 to then get my corresponding y. So 3 times 25 would be 75, and 4 times 25 would be 100. If you went to graph this, x goes over nothing and y went up nothing for my first point of 0, 0. For my next point, 1, 25, you're going to go over 1 and up 25, which is halfway between the 50. Okay, and then over 2, up 50. Over 3, up 75, so halfway between 50 and 100. And then over 4, up 100. Okay, and then go ahead and connect those points. And for these, it should always be a straight line that's formed because it's continuing at a constant rate. And then for these particular ones, when you don't see something being added or subtracted at the end, it's always going to pass through the origin at 0, 0. Okay, so let's say they didn't just already give it to me. This time, they made it a little bit tougher. They gave me a word problem. Now I have to come up with the equation, the table, and the graph. So I need to determine what's the independent, the x, and what's the y. And that will let me know what to graph where. Okay. The equation says the cost of a snow cone is $1.50. What is the total cost, C, of S number of snow cones? Okay, so what do you do to S in order to get C? Well, I multiply it by $1.50 because each snow cone is $1.50. Let's see, like sometimes people can't jump to the equation part. That's really hard for them. So filling out the table helps them figure out what should go in front of your, yes, for this one, they told me to use C and S, but most of the time it's always X and Y. And so determine out what goes here. Maybe let's plug in some numbers. So let's plug in 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so I know that the x is probably, what makes more sense? The number of snow cones I buy depends upon how much money I spend. Does that make sense? Or how much money I spend depends upon how many snow cones I bought. Probably that second one, huh? So how much money, remember that y is your dependent variable and x is your independent variable. So y, how much money you spend, depends on the number of snow cones bought. Okay, so if you buy 0 cones, you spend no money. But if you buy 1, that's $1.50. 2 would be $1.50 and $1.50, so $3. Notice how each time you're multiplying by $1.50. So continue. Add another $1.50, that's $4.50. Add another $1.50, that's $6. Each time you're taking the x and multiplying it by $1.50. So that's where the rate or constant or slope comes from. Okay, now we said that this is the x-axis and this is the y-axis. The y-axis is talking about the money spent on snow cones, and x is talking about the number of snow cones bought. Okay, and again, to help you remember this, all these are things that you can actually like measure and keep track of, but the main important thing is that x is always the independent, y is always the dependent, because what you get for y depends upon the value of x. Like what you did to x is going to affect your y value. This varies versus this is like a fixed thing. So they'll tell you this, and then that affects your y. Okay. Let's go ahead and plot these points. When you buy 0 snow cones, you spend 0 money. When you buy 1 snow cone, you spend $1.50. When you buy 2, you spend $3. 3 was $4.50 and 4 was $6. So notice that each time it goes up $1.50 over 1, because each time you buy 1 snow cone, you go up $1.50. Okay, and that's the main things that we need to know about independent versus dependent variables. X goes on the horizontal axis, y goes on the vertical axis. Y is your dependent, X is your independent. Okay? Congratulations, my little mathematicians. You've cranked out yet another standard.